Hi everyone, I'm your host Georgie Speakman. You're either watching or listening to Outlier TV. And this evening, today, we have the beautiful Janeé Bolden in the studio. Welcome, babe.
Thank you, Georgie.
Thank you so much for coming last minute.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So Janeé, for those who are not necessarily familiar, is currently the managing editor of Boss It, which is a pop culture and entertainment platform, which is awesome.
Thank you.
We're big fans.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, of course. And you've had a crazy few days with BET.
It's been very busy, definitely.
Yeah, I guess, are you out here every year?
Typically, I am here every year for BET Awards. I actually did not work the red carpet this year. We took a little break from that. Yeah, we weren't. It's not always, I don't know if you've heard, there's been a lot of complaints in the media where they, just in terms of the black media outlets not being put in the best placement. And we found that to be true quite a bit, even for the BET Awards. I never felt that we were in the worst place, but it was just a lot of times certain talent, like the top A-list talent, they'll rush them down to the end of the carpet for certain other outlets, or specifically just for the Viacom outlets. Right. Or to go right into the, the photos for Getty and those type of places. So it wasn't always we weren't always getting the interviews that really would get our readers excited, and that makes it difficult to really justify taking the trip to LA.
Right. But
I'm here because so much other stuff is going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had the pleasure of seeing you curate and moderate such a remarkable panel over the weekend. That was really, we've all seen and been a part of many a panel.
Yes.
That was one of the best I've ever experienced, especially in the last 5-6 years in LA.
Much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my friend Felicia Font, she put together the panel with Denise Williams, and they have been doing quite a few at Soho House where they speak to honorable women in music and honor them. And it's really all about talking about our journey and telling our stories. Not everything isn't always pretty. People think the entertainment industry looks very glamorous. Yeah.
But I think everybody knows that there's a dark side to industry.
Yeah.
It's always, though, it never gets dull hearing about what that dark side has been for the individual, and how they've kind of overcome any adversities they've faced, and how that continues to change and evolve today. So Justina from Beats, on the panel, she spoke to so many incredible subject matter, and she was very very neutral and very wise,
Yeah, definitely. The way she handles herself, you could really tell that's something that's come from years of experience, working in a corporate environment, and having to sometimes be politically correct. But she still was very, strong. That strength came through. And I've been working. Actually, I really got into moderating panels about 4 years ago. With A3C, I did a Women in Power or Women in Charge panel for them in 2014 was the first one, and I found I really enjoyed it. I liked putting together the panels, and I liked doing the moderation thing because it's an interesting role. You have to kind of step back a little bit and be able to segue and speak to different people's strengths and really know both who your subject matter is as well as your audience. Well,
you did a really, really wonderful job. It was very organic and natural, and there were so many beautiful, beautiful, incredible women in the crowd as well.
Definitely.
We really, really enjoyed.
And all different types of women. Very powerful women, and some who are just beginning their careers.
Correct. So. Yeah, it was a very good mix of individuals in the crowd for sure. And Amina was a lot of fun too. And I can't believe her voice is like a dead ringer for Nicki Minaj. And I was like, wait, is this Nicki on the panel? Because there was somebody sitting in front of me, so I couldn't see her face when she was speaking. And I was just kind of sitting back listening to her, and I was literally picturing Nicki on the panel talking. Yeah, no, I enjoyed Amina as well. Yeah, she was a lot of fun. No, they were all brilliant. So back to BET. There have been, further to your comment, there have been a few different complaints this year about the sort of the whole situation. Right. And everybody's had a different perspective on, and without calling anything out. But what, in addition to what you just shared prior, How have you seen BT, having been involved for how many years now have you been coming to LA to be a part?
I mean, it's probably, so I started with Bossip in 2009. So I've been coming for all of these years since then. But even before that, I, attended when they did the Hip Hop Awards in Atlanta, when I used to work for Vibe and for SOHH as well. So I've been doing it for, probably around a decade, something around that time.
How have you seen the awards, the shows?
They've just grown and grown and evolved, and they've done different setups. It can be really hot out there. Last year they had a tent. They tented it, which was really nice because it made it a lot cooler.
Sure.
It's really hard to stand on that carpet for hours and in the hot sun without water. Some people are wearing dripping sweat.
Shoes.
Definitely all of that. It makes it really difficult. So that's been a good change, and the venue, of course, has changed. There were times it used to be, close to USC, and then they moved. Now the LA Live is there. They've moved it down there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of great things about it. I don't want to bash them at all. They definitely do.
Really fun time.
It is, and the people that are brought together, even that is kind of, it's like a nice mix of high, low, and I mean, you don't want to call people low, but it is you got a little reality. You got some reality stars in there. You've got major athletes. You've got major actors and actresses. You've got politicians, humanitarians, all different types of people.
Absolutely, an incredible cross section for sure. And did you get to see any or many of the performances over the weekend?
I actually didn't go to the awards, and I didn't watch them because I went out to dinner. But we watched later. I went to one of the after parties, actually right at Beauty and Essex, and they were showing it. So I did get a chance. I had heard amazing things about Meek Mill's performance, so it was great to see him. I was excited that he wore the XXX Tentacion shirt. I really enjoyed the political statements that were made. The Anita Baker tribute was another favorite moment of mine. I really love Lettucey and Marsha Ambrosius, and I think Jamie Foxx did a great job. I would say that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I didn't see all of the awards. I definitely saw some of his work, and then he had a huge party last night.
He did at his house, but he doesn't live close enough for me to...
It was a good hour away.
So you went to Jamie Foxx
for a minute, yes.
Oh, okay.
But it was a pretty packed, out of control
I had a few
gig.
friends who went, and one of them, she's a photographer, so she actually caught one of the performances, and I know she had a ball.
No, there's just too much to take on. It's like you die after the weekend if you're going to be a part of everything. So I want to talk to you about where your career got started. I mean, you've also written, as you mentioned, for Vibe, SOHH, The Source, XXL.
Yeah.
Which I like to call extra large. So where did it kick off? Was this just an interest and passion you were born with, or did you fall into it?
Well, I would like to think that that writing is an interest and a passion that I was born with. Hip hop is something that I really fell in love with when I was living in Iowa, of all places. I was very lonely and isolated in a place that didn't have much Black culture. So anything I could get my hands on, I subscribed to Vibe. I got it every month. I hung up the pictures on my wall. I watched BET every day after school. I was super into hip hop, and being from the Midwest, I listened to everything. I wasn't into the East Coast, West Coast beef. I listened. When I heard Dr. Dre, The Chronic, that album changed my life. When I heard Nas, Illmatic, it changed my life.
Sure.
The Wu-Tang's first album. Yeah. Those are, I grew up in the 90s. So I think for most people who grew up in the 90s, it's hard not to be a hip hop fan because the music at that time was just so incredible. It was so well done.
Listen, I agree. This might surprise you, but coming from the South in Australia, I grew up on hip hop too.
Wow.
It's all I enjoyed, and I lived in South Carolina for 6 months when I was 16, on a school exchange.
Nice.
40 minutes outside of Charleston, in a town or just outside of Ridgeville, South Carolina. And this was at a time where, Park and Biggie were, going bananas, releasing a lot of their tracks. And but even before that, Beats, Rhymes, and Life, A Tribe, Quest, and Q-Tip were probably my favorites.
Yes, I actually told Q-Tip one time that Low End Theory changed my life. Really saved my life. I used to walk to school and listen to that album. And it helped a lot. Like the music, I took a lot of refuge in that. So I don't think that I necessarily thought that I want to be a hip hop journalist, even though I really looked up to a lot of the writers in Vibe and The Source. I wanted to write books, but it just kind of was an opportunity that I had in my 20s. I had a friend from college who was an editor, and he was like, "We need a news writer. Are you interested?" And at that time, I had been doing some interviews for a smaller website called Dope Mag, and I had spoken to Little Brother, and I had talked to Rhymefest, and I had talked to Diggable Planets, and I was said, "Sure, I'm in. Tell me what you need."
Absolutely, and I bet you probably don't have time now to write the book of your dreams, right? Or are you currently
I'm
writing?
trying to write the book. I'm trying to write the book of my dreams. Time is like at a premium. It's really hard to find time, but I'm going to make it a priority. A book will be coming soon, I promise.
Awesome. As part of being in this whole culture of pop, entertainment, you name it, hip hop, how have you seen the industry, music, everything, the culture of it evolve like over the last decade?
I mean, it's changed so much. Especially if you look at the way that artists express themselves now and the things that they do. Like, I think that there was a time where posturing was really big, and I think even you see it with the fashion, where what was acceptable before was like a really baggy aesthetic, and now you see like the more fitted European. You might even see a rapper in a dress. And it's just like, I think that
all these bloody bike pants, ladies and guys. Like, I mean, I don't know if I'm game enough to rock the bike pant, like, you know what I mean, or the onesies.
No, it's a lot. It's definitely different. But and it's funny because a lot of people who love the '90s music, like, they don't really like the new music at all, or like there's people who are like, they don't like, they call them mumble rappers, or they'll say like they don't like trap music or whatever. I actually love it all. Like, I love trap music. I love Young Thug. I love Lil Uzi. I love Future. I enjoy live, going to concerts. Last year, I went to so many concerts.
You got to take the good from the bad, right? I think every artist has their good and bad times and moments.
Definitely.
And it's like I'm not necessarily a Future fan, but there are a couple of tracks that he's put out over the years that I'm just like, oh my God, that bass line, just melt.
And I think I live in Atlanta, so it's like you have to kind of love Future because he's really of the city and of the culture, and I think even just the influence, because he's influenced by organized noise, so it's like it's not just all one way. He has like a side that's. And I think also, even in terms of the people that are out now, he really influenced a lot of people with that melodic, his melodic style. And I think a few people did. I think when Young Thug came out, we hadn't heard anything like that. Right. I think that you have to give credit where credit is due. And I think, there's absolutely some negative stuff. Like, I don't really particularly like the fact that lean is promoted. I mean, I was a huge Pimp C fan. Huge Pimp C fan. When Pimp C died, I was devastated, and he really died because of lean. So to see these kids drinking it and promoting it and walking around with the styrofoam cups, it's like it's not cool,
There are always going to be different like iterations over the years of like things that the industry and the artists are faced with that they have to find ways to overcome.
Yes.
So in the work that you do, where do you find personal gratification, like soul satisfying meaning in the work that you do? Because a lot of the time you have to be somewhat surface and it's reporting on entertainment, pop culture. How do you like inject your depth and meaning within the work that you're doing?
Well, I think with Gossip specifically, we try to present balanced news. So I think it's in writing the political stories that we write, in addition to the more entertainment focus. And then also just when you see an artist and you see the human side of that artist, or you see them give back. And I think that's one thing, especially with me living in Atlanta, I do see most of these artists, they have things for the community. They give back to the community. They give back to the kids. Yeah. And being able to go document that is like great. It's a great thing to see. And
I think I'm really impressed with most artists, I think these days have a social impact through lines of work that they do and how they choose to show up in life, because the importance of giving back to, especially the future generations and the Gen Zs that are coming through. I mean, there is just, I think the generations, it's like they're getting smaller and smaller. There's more cross-pollination between everybody's thinking. you know, the younger kids are becoming so much older so quickly through social and just tech in general.
Right.
They have to have that voice, even that positive voice.
Just the way that some of the artists, the younger artists, where people really have more of a sense of humanity and being more conscious of what's going on. So you'll have like a Chance the Rapper, or you'll have like even Khalid with the songs that they're putting out with Logic, like the song, the anti-suicide song.
Far out.
And I think the fact that you have this in pop music, and pop music is actually
on a level.
Definitely.
It's the 1800 track. You know, I still put it on, and when I sing it,
like sometimes you don't even really. I don't want to live anymore. Yeah,
I know.
And I'm like,
I don't want to live anymore. But no, now I do.
Yes,
all in the space of 5 minutes. I'm like, that's good.
It's so
ending on
amazing.
a high note.
And I think the other thing I get gratification from is just when there's new artists, when there's people that I can help. I really love being able to help where I can. So it's, you know, it's. I think that's definitely the bonus to the job, you know, being able to help when it's a new artist, or when I have a friend who has someone who needs more exposure, I can help promote them.
Absolutely.
Or even just like my hairstylist last week, she loves Eric Bellinger.
Where do I get hair like yours, babe?
We might have to buy you some, Georgie. Or you can take a wand curler.
Doesn't quite.
It might take you 3 or 4 hours.
Right. And I'd need a tiny
the little one.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I use a little wand sometimes to add to the curl. But
nice.
But yeah, my hairstylist loves Eric Bellinger. He was in Atlanta last week, and I know his publicist, and I just said, hey, can you please put my hairdresser on the
amazing
list? Yeah. And she was like, oh, you made my day. So
beautiful.
That's just like, it's such a little thing, you know, and when I can do something, it makes me feel great.
Yeah, of
But
course.
even just like, for me, personal gratification sometimes is like when I go to see an artist that I really love. One of the shows I saw recently was Ty Dolla $ign when he came to Atlanta. And I just had the best night. Like he just puts on an amazing show.
What was it about the show?
Well, he brought out everyone. And I also just love him. Like, I love the style. Like, as you probably could have picked up, I really like melodic music. And I just think he's like so great with that. He's so talented. Yeah. And I love everything that he writes for other people. The things that he wrote for on the Carter's album was great. Yeah. And I like the new song he has with Jeremiah. Like, I just think he's so talented as a writer. And I also love the fact that he's so open. So he's willing to work with so many different types of artists.
Absolutely.
And I think when you're going for a concert experience, like, it's great to like not get stuck and you're like, you feel like you're hearing the same thing over and over. So like to have him come out and he brings all these different types of artists out on stage.
Absolutely. I'm curious to ask you, like, what your take is on innovation and the concept of innovation in music, and how, because the landscape is so much more competitive. So different and so much more competitive than what it used to be, and there are
definitely
self-published and distributed
and all
artists
the streaming
as well as
platforms.
Correct. And so the landscape itself has proliferated so much. I hear artists trying to innovate in their sound. They're trying to do stuff differently. Okay, there's a bit of this, bit of that. Trying to get the emotive, stuff back in, which I just refer to as like more 90s rap.
Yeah.
But then it still might have like the Pharrell quirkiness in the tracks or whatever it might be. What does innovation in hip hop mean to you and your audience today? Do you think?
I think that it means a lot of different things, because I think on the one hand, there's really no one way to reach anyone anymore. You can't just put it on iTunes, you have some people who prefer Spotify, you have some people who prefer Tidal, and then, there's of course Sound. You're like Spotify, SoundCloud, all the different platforms. And then, of course, you were saying with the different sounds, I think that's just an example of people broadening their scope. And I think it's what's interesting about it is, if we came up with 90s music and 90s music sampled so much 70s music, and now we're in 2018 and 2018 is sampling 90s music. So you have multiple artists who've sampled that Cash Money sound, or the Memphis sound, the Juicy J tracks that have been in the later, G-Eazy sampled, and ASAP Ferg sampled as well. So it's like, it's really cool. But if you think about it, it makes sense, because when you're kids, you're listening to what your parents are playing, and it's, you know what I mean? Like when your parents.
1,000,000%. I mean, I grew up, I lived with my father growing up in my teenage years, and I listened to the Frank Sinatra's of the world, and the Diana Krauss, and a lot of the older,
right?
You know, and even the Marvin Gayes and all that kind of stuff, and a massively broad spectrum of you know, cross section of genres and artists, and like I'm so happy I'm a Zennial. You've heard the term Zennial?
No.
You're on the cusp of
what is it? Gen Z?
X
it's Gen Z or
Gen X and Y, right?
Oh, okay. I listen.
Research.
I might just be too old. I might just be too old because I don't even know. I know like millennial and
it's at the cusp of Gen X and millennials.
Okay.
No, whatever.
Yeah,
anyway,
Generation
you know
X and millennial. That makes sense. Yeah, that would make sense to make it a Zennial,
right? Because you're transitioning from the analog era into digital and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, so it's nice to have. I'm just happy that I'm one of those, like that I've been able to like embrace and endure that kind of music and be a part of that. You know, even though they came from prior decades. So on a culture question, like you've moved a lot between Atlanta and LA just for work and what have you. Like how would you compare the cultures just in general?
I mean, the cultures are very different, definitely.
I'm dying to go to Atlanta. I'm gonna come visit.
Atlanta it's a very special place, and it's what's interesting in Atlanta. We have the conversation all the time about actually the terminology we use is Atlanta influences everything. So you'll see we have murals and stuff, and we have t-shirts. I have a friend, Tori Edwards, and he has this in his studio. And because really, if you think about the artists that are dominating the charts, a lot of them are from Atlanta. And then even those who are not necessarily from Atlanta, either the songwriter or the producers from Atlanta, or they went to Atlanta to go to the studio to create the album. And so you see how Atlanta influences a lot of things. But then you definitely can see how LA influences things. People come back from LA to Atlanta and, you know, they're like, well, now I'm vegan. And you know what I mean? Not to say that that's the only thing that LA has to contribute. But people come out here and they see a different side, you know, and I think LA's very interesting, especially in terms of radio, because LA will always stick with the LA artists. I think they show LA artists a lot of love, and they still play a lot of old. Yeah,
I feel that way about LA. It's pretty LA centric.
Yeah.
I would say that most cities, don't you think that they influence everywhere else, like New York, you know, we'll say the same thing.
Well, New York, yes. New York thinks that there's just nothing better than New York. And I lived in New York for 10 years, and to an extent, for a long time, I felt the same way, that New York, you just can't top New York. There's nothing like New York. And there is nothing like New York, but there's nothing like LA
But it's
either.
not the only goddamn city. I'm a huge fan of New York. I came and I kind of lived there on and off for a couple of years. Love New York. I would never move there permanently, and I admire you for doing that. I couldn't.
Well, I didn't do it permanently. I did it for 10 years, and what I always tell people was New York was the boyfriend that I knew would never marry me. So it was like I was comfortable, but I wasn't like.
And then New Yorkers say LA is a side bitch, so I guess it's just
LA. That's definitely a good term for LA. LA.
It can be in the winter because it's just I could not survive the second that.
And then Atlanta is like the good wife or something.
Really?
Yeah.
We all need a good wife, don't we? Well, yeah, I'm dying to come. I have to come and visit. I met Major 7 last night, the producer who's actually written a lot of Future stuff and worked with Jay-Z and lots of others. And he was amazing. He was so beautiful. What a gorgeous man.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, just his energy was very, very cool, very relaxed.
Everything
very humble.
Especially with producers. I love producer energy. Like,
yes.
I think that...
Some of the landscape of creativity,
thinkers,
right?
Yes, and then everything is about energy, and so like you have great energy. When I met you, I was like,
"Thank you, baby."
Oh, this amazing
Likewise.
woman. But then also like, and I think, especially for what I do, I always try to keep conscious about my energy and like, you know, just stay like good. You know what I mean? Good and positive.
No road rage on a bad day.
Oh, I have road rage every day. Is it bad day or good day? I'm a road rager.
Oh no,
that's just my
shocker.
personality.
I turn into like speed racer on the.
I have to like put on like Daniel Caesar and in order to like just keep from crashing the car.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Her and
are you driving in LA? You okay?
No. I have rented a car on occasion here, but I much prefer to just call that Lyft and just
it's pretty
charge my phone and relax in the back seat.
Absolutely.
I like when the Lyft driver offers you the aux cord. Like that's when they get the 5 stars for sure. And then
especially when they have sweets in the back too and get some water.
Oh yes, the candy, or they have the Starburst, the pink and red ones. Yes.
Awesome. So I want to go back to the panel because I was quite moved. I was actually, my girlfriend Miosha and I who were there, who happens to be in the room here with us today.
Hi, Miosha.
Hi, Miosha. We were just commenting that the conversation. I'm gonna call it out. Okay.
Call it out.
All right. And this is scary for me because I'm obviously not from here. I'm Australian. Okay.
Yes.
So we don't have an African American culture in Australia.
Right.
However, I will say what I'm really excited about is there's been a massive increase in immigration in Australia. Because we're kind of all European mutts, we do have like a lot of Asians and Indians because we're a lot closer, maybe, and Pakistanis. Yeah. But we don't really have Latinos, Hispanics, and we don't have we haven't had historically a lot of African immigrants. But it's only in the last 10 years that there's been a bunch of immigration into the country, and so there's this incredible emergence of new way of culture there, which is amazing, of African Australians.
Oh wow!
And by the way, incredibly talented hip hop artists and
wow.
R&B scene. Yeah, it's really, really exciting.
Okay, so not all Iggy Azalea.
Not. Listen, I think every white girl in Australia is probably trying to now be her. I'm not sure. No. No, they're not. We should talk about that because I'm curious. She's like, oh, okay. No, I've got opinions too. It's all good. But I want to talk about the panel.
Yes.
Because I want to call it out, as I said, I was one of probably, I think, 3 or 4 white people.
Yes.
Not just women, but people.
Yes.
In the whole crowd, and I was just like watching all these beautiful women come through, and I was like. But then a conversation towards the end of the panel.
Someone I think
more
in
towards
the
race.
Audience, right?
Yeah, they were talking about disparities or differences between not just women but like white women versus black women.
I think specifically what happened was there was a woman in the audience who came from a finance background.
Yes,
and she said that there's all these new incentives or companies are having these. They're moving to do all these things for women, pro-women events or job opportunities or whatever. And she said that white women are the ones who are benefiting, and they are benefiting without even noticing that African-American women are not benefiting at all. And you probably remember that I was quick to say, when I threw the question back to the audience, do you agree with this? Because I don't think we all agree, because I was a little off-put by the question, and I feel like, especially in that space, not to say that we shouldn't be open, because it definitely was supposed to be a space for everyone to be open.
Yeah.
But just to just be aware. I don't like generalities. You know, I think that there's good and bad people of all races, and
absolutely.
I think that you always have to. Recognize your allies, and I think you also should be aware that in terms of how things have been going, we have to get to a point where we can work together, and a lot of things will not be accomplished without the help of allies. And I think that even if you look back to the 70s and you look at the Black Panther Party, a lot of what the Black Panthers were able to accomplish came because they had white allies, specifically in Hollywood. Hollywood had a lot to do with the success of the Black Panther Party. A lot of the financial contributions came from that. And I think that, yes, it's okay to enlighten people who might be ignorant about the plight, or at least make them more aware, because I think sometimes we all kind of move through life, with blinders on. Like, this is what I have to deal with. This is my world, and these are my obstacles. And I think sometimes you do need someone to kind of wake you up and say, like, hey, did you notice that this white women keep getting all this, and maybe you probably never noticed, and you're like,
well, I didn't know whether to sink back down into my chair,
right, or to like stand up and object,
or stand up and say something. But would have been I'm actually pretty shy, so believe it or not,
no,
so I would have been
surprised.
too shy. I was joking with Miosha about standing up and saying stuff, so I was making her laugh, because imagine if I stood up and said this, and she was like,
she's like, this isn't the place for that.
right. But it's just it's a really, because I'm an immigrant to the country, and then I just explained the Australian cultural situation. So coming here, I've had to learn a lot and adapt a lot. So I've had my own fair share of different experiences.
Yes.
Projections and good and bad and all that kind of stuff. So it's always it's a tough conversation, but it
doesn't get better until you have the conversation, though, right?
And it continues to fascinate me because the more time you do spend talking about it and bringing light to whatever the situation is, whether it's Me Too or a race dialogue or whatever driven dialogue, people, everyone has their own experiences and their own take. And I really loved Justina's take too. She had a very neutral response.
But she also said, hey, because I think the other two women both were like, hey, I haven't experienced this racism. What racism? There's no racism. Like that kind of, which that surprised me. And then Justina said, no, it's absolutely not a fallacy. And I think part of it was the woman in the audience was coming from a financial background as far as her industry. And I think that in our industry, it's much more multicultural. Mm-hmm. So if you're coming from a finance background or if you're coming from a more corporate background, you're going to see less and less Black people, Black women specifically. And, in other industries, we don't encounter the same type of difficulties, but I think it's still there to a certain extent. It's just maybe not as exacerbated. And even, I think there was like an article earlier this week. There's a Black woman who is a trader, Wall Street trader, and I think she's like one of the only ones, if not like the only Black trader. Yeah, and even like when the article went up. Who wants to be a
goddamn trader, by the way? But anyway.
And she's gorgeous, a gorgeous girl. Wow. And people were commenting, there was people commenting saying, I doubt she's really on the floor. Like stuff like that. I doubt she's really on the floor, and I have a lot of friends who are in that world, finance and investment banking and stuff. Yeah. And I hear them say, it can be tough in those rooms, and there's definitely like old boys clubs and that whole environment.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the conversation that's been done to death, but still also equally been an important one, has been the whole Me Too movement. I'm just going to call it as that because it's just what everyone identifies with. That was another
interesting moment for the panel as well. Don't you think that Tamika had a different take on it?
Yes, she did. I really enjoyed observing her responses.
Right.
They were I found them to be quite different to Amina's and Justina's.
Yes.
As valuable just through a different lens, you know? And this is why it always comes down to the individual's experience at the end of the day, because we all, have had our own, different views and experiences and come from different cities, upbringings, you name it. I've had my fair share of Me Too stuff going on, especially in this
You're
town.
You're a beautiful girl.
Is that the reason?
I mean, no, not necessarily, because sometimes it doesn't even matter if you're beautiful or not. It doesn't matter if you're a girl or a man. I think it just kind of, I think certain cultures, like there's just a culture that is, well, I think one thing that happened this year is people have really been raising the issue of patriarchy and just the fact that patriarchy exists and that we've always been taught that boys will be boys. And so women are expected to you'll hear stupid things like, well, what were you wearing when this happened? And what did you do? And what it becomes like, what does it matter what I did?
Yeah.
I didn't do anything to provoke someone to be inappropriate. And
absolutely. Like in response to where the sort of trajectory Tamika was on, for example, I personally I think a warm friendliness is one thing, but flirtation, for me, that makes me feel uncomfortable, especially in the workplace.
Flirtation.
Like, dude, I don't want you flirting with me, because then I feel obligated to respond.
Yeah.
And my whole situation with that is that then you feel like you're cold, or you get labeled as a bitch if you don't give out or respond in a certain way.
Definitely.
And there's a lot of pressure, but at the same time, you don't want to dim your light. And if you've got a personality, and I'm like fun loving and open, but you don't want to get that can easily be misconstrued, right?
Right.
It's a fine balance to manage.
No, and definitely I think as women, there's so many different perspectives on it, because I know women who say use it to your advantage, and then they use their femininity to accomplish things sometimes. And I'm not even talking about sleeping your way to the top. How you use your
femininity to accomplish things in your career.
But this is just more like the being, when someone calls you babe, instead of saying, hey, Can we not do the babe thing?
Okay, so this is interesting. So in Australia, I mean, there's a whole, all my friends, we're all like, hey, babe, what's up? Like, it's almost like, hey, buddy, hey, mate. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But then with men in America, they're like...
Once they call you babe or baby, it's like...
Or no, but like, when I've used babe for them, just as a, hey, babe, blah, 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 and they come at you in a certain way at a later date, and they're like, but you call me babe. I'm like,
what?
But that doesn't, I mean, that's
right.
like, hey,
you're like, I'm Australian.
That's like the bluest,
babe
the sky's
is like,
blue.
Bruh. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, so it's those nuances for sure.
Definitely. And I mean, I have a lot of male friends in the industry. I have male mentors. And I think even some of the mentors at some point, there was like some question of, are you trying to mentor me or?
Trying to mentor me in that kind of way. Well, you know, I'm sure they all wanted to mentor you in all kinds of ways. Let's face it. No, right. I shouldn't say that.
No, but I think it's just honest. I think that you have to be honest sometimes about the circumstances, and I think that the best way to be is just, as I think Amina basically said, like, you have to address it, and it's best to address it at the moment.
Oh,
obviously.
Yeah.
I don't feel any kind of way about women coming forward. You know, if we're talking about Bill Cosby or we're talking about Harvey Weinstein or anyone, I don't feel any type of way about how long it took someone to say something, because if you're traumatized, your initial response for some people is shock.
Yeah, I think a lot of those women probably did say something.
And then people were like, don't say that, he's powerful.
Yeah, or the publicist was like, well, we're trying to get you to your agent or manager, we're trying to get you to this place in your career. Let's just hold off on that and send you to a therapist for now instead.
Right.
You have no idea. None of us have any idea as to how many times women tried, may
definitely,
have come forward.
And how many people may have even gotten legal advice.
Sure,
because I definitely know people who were advised.
Yes,
don't come forward.
Yes,
you don't want that to be things are going so
well
well for you. You don't want that stigma on you. You know that's the talk that people get, and I think, I mean, really, all we can do is just continue to be supportive, and I think definitely everything has to be vetted out, because there have been situations where people who've been punished who perhaps may not have done anything wrong. There's been a few situations like that.
Sure. I'm sure there's been a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
Listen, life in everything and anything is dichotomous by nature, right? There's balance in all of it. So it's just, there's going to be...
Right. They say there's always three sides to every story.
Right. What are they?
It's like your side, my side, and the truth, or something like that. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
There's a few of those sayings out there like that. Speaking of talking and the talk, you were just only on CBS this morning. You've been on the show many, many times.
I have been on there a few times.
So I'm curious to hear, like, as you're comfortable, obviously, on radio. I mean, you've got your own show and distribute content through other platforms as well. Is it WDAS, right?
Yeah, well, I do a weekly show with WDAS with Patty Jackson. So she's more. It's like more of an adult contemporary show. Typically, we're talking about entertainment news. Sometimes it's movies. Sometimes it's concerts, or sometimes it's award shows. So,
and Bossip's got a place on WeTV.
Bossip has a show. Bossip on WeTV. It's coming back August 2nd, I believe, for the second season. Yeah. I'm not on this season.
Oh,
no. But Danielle Canada, watch for her. She is one of my best writers and editors, and I'm looking forward to seeing her. She's also on Sister Circle. Cool. So we're doing a lot more with TV. I personally love doing the talk, and like, if I could do the talk every week, believe me, you would see me there every week. Because
there could be a possibility.
Well,
I'm sure.
Sharon today actually was like, "You got to come back soon." So I was like, "Soon, sure."
Hi guys, I'm back.
Want me back tomorrow?
So how have you continued to find your voice in the evolution? How many times have you been on the show?
I've been on the show for 3 times. I think that, for me, the first time it was live TV, so it was like...
Was that nerve-wracking for you?
It was definitely nerve-wracking, but it also was like, when I finished it, I felt so proud, like...
Elevated, energized.
I just felt like it was a next step that I had taken, and now it's free to like do it, more of it. And the funny thing about me is I've been working as an entertainment journalist for... like I said, since 2004 or so, so like almost 15 years.
Wowzers.
And when I first started, I wasn't really comfortable on camera. I really preferred to just be behind the camera, put the person on camera. And it really took time for me to just, but the thing about it with the camera is like, if you feel any type of discomfort or like
just sweat it out under the clothing.
No, but it's going to show, like it shows, like you have to just really become at ease with yourself. And I think that part of that is growing and maturity. And so I think I've matured to the point where now I'm just kind of at ease with where I am as a woman in life.
You have beautiful, calm, serene energy. I can imagine. And was it intimidating going on the show surrounded by other women?
No, that part I love.
Empowered.
Like, I'm not one of those women who's like, oh, I'm a guy's girl. You know what I mean? Like, I have my guy friends.
You're definitely a woman's woman, but not even from that perspective. More like just.
Well, because women can be kind of cold sometimes.
No, not at all. Not at all. From just being in the room with different women that you know are going to come forward with incredible opinions. And you know, like.
No, I mean, well, some of them I already was like huge fans of. So Eve, I was a fan of before she started really doing daytime talk. You know, I obviously grew up with her music as a fan of her music. And then when she had her TV show, I was a fan of the TV show. The very first time I went on the show, I was interviewing her afterwards. So I was super excited about that. So going in, it was like exciting to meet Eve. The first show that I was on, Sharon Osbourne was out, and Darius Rucker from Hootie and the Blowfish was co-hosting in her place. And let me see, Sarah Gilbert was also out, and they had, I think, Carney Wilson was there replacing her, and she was so warm. And I'm also a fan of Wilson Phillips, so like it was nice to like sit next to her. And Cheryl Underwood is like such a beautiful, like, she's a spiritual woman. She loves God. She talks about God a lot, and I identify with that. You know, I have a really strong faith, so I felt comfortable with her, and she was very reassuring, just in terms of like calming me. Julie Chen is also super nice, like just one of the nicest, coolest, down to earth women ever. And I felt nothing. Like literally, it's the type of set you walk on, and like literally everyone has like, and it's not even like a fake smile or a fake nice. Everyone is like genuinely like, hey, so nice to see you. And it's like, you just feel, as soon as you get there, you're like, well, I can't even be stressed about anything because these people have so much confidence in me. They're like, you come in and they're like, you're going to go in there and you're going to kill them. And I made an effort to make sure, because it was live, even though I have a cue card that I memorized what I had to say, they were super impressed with that, because the top talker job, it's so typically it's a LA based entertainment reporter that comes in, and it's not always an on-camera reporter. So a lot of times they might have a magazine editor, someone like this. Exactly, and then they're reading the card. So I think for them, me being someone who's not necessarily in front of a camera every day, they were like, wow, you've got your lines without looking at the card, and they love that. And so I just try to continue to like meet their expectations or exceed them.
But you know, it's just you just being natural. You've got that natural energy.
Thank
about
you. Yeah. I mean, everyone says it seems natural, and to an extent it definitely is, but I think a lot of it is just like I said, maturity. As you get older and you practice things and you just learn how to be calm, learn how to calm yourself down, take a deep breath. It's all about smiling, you know, especially on camera. Like, you start to watch yourself and you're like, why am I look stressed out. I got to stop looking stressed out. I got to just relax and smile. No, not at all. You look fine.
Don't be too cheesy. Don't make me be cheesy. Too cheesy. You mentioned religion, so your faith.
So I am Christian, but I'm not like in church every week at all. I'm not even in the Bible every, day or night or any of that stuff. I had a church going grandmother who used to take me to church all the time. And I used to just beg her, Grandma, read me Bible. And she would read me the Bible. And I had a kid's Bible with all the stories and stuff. So I grew up just drawing a lot of strength from that. Like she always taught me, pray for the things that you want and that you need, and that God will take care of you. And I found through my life that like when I got into difficult situations, that when I did pray, that typically my prayers were answered, and to an extent to where like I would see signs like where it was just very clear. And I had major life events. My mom has had a few scares, precancerous type scares.
I'm sorry to hear that.
She's fine. She's she's done really well. She had a caught early colon cancer signs. So basically she had to have surgery, but she didn't have to do any chemo or anything.
Good.
And another situation, I lived in New York during 9/11. That was really difficult as well. And it was hard. You're in a situation where there's no explanation for like why things happen the way they happen sometimes.
Well, I think the power of prayer is literally that, powerful. What in your world and mind, heart, soul is the difference between the universe and God? Do you see the two as one of the same?
I do. Not exactly one and the same, but to an extent. And I actually, because of it, I have a lot of friends who are Muslim, and I totally respect their faith. And I actually practiced Buddhism for a time. Yeah.
Nichiren Buddhism?
Yes, I did. But I found that the meditation was quite a lengthy thing for me.
It is very lengthy, but I've got the Nichiren, the geometric lotus flower, but that's the Nichiren Buddhism.
But that Buddhism actually speaks really to my soul, because just in terms of being someone who I would say is more of a spiritual person, and I think also just learning to like recognize in others, that we share common things, and that we're all beings, and that life is such a precious thing, and so many different things. I think that really spoke to me. When I was young, one of my favorite books was Siddhartha. Have you read that book?
I haven't read Siddhartha, no.
I definitely suggest it, especially if you have practiced Buddhism.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's supposed to be the story of.
There are so many. They're all that fat. There's so many books out there on the history of Nichiren Buddhism and Buddhism in general.
Right.
I've read a lot of books in that space, but there are a lot that are very intimidating in terms of length.
This one is super short. It's
that's good to hear.
Herman Hesse is the author. It's a very short book, and it's a beautiful book, but it's just, how they have the story of how Jesus, before he turned 34, he went through all this exploration before he became this enlightened being. And it's very similar, where this Siddhartha had experienced concubines and all types of wild things before he found his peace.
No. Well, Jesus Christ was meant to be a prophet. I mean, a human being at the end of the day.
And you have to know real people. And I think that's the great thing too, whether you're talking Christianity or Buddhism, but if you're really talking about...
Or spirituality. When, by the way, there's so many different insights and takes on,
you're right,
on what that means to
each I don't want to ignore any of it,
Yeah.
but like just learning... The basics of it is just respecting others and respecting yourself. And I think that it really helps when you're navigating in this world, because it makes it so, like, people who have an understanding of that, it's so clear what is morally okay and what is not. And I think it makes it so hard sometimes
Absolutely.
to understand how people can be so evil to each other, when if you have really the basics of that,
of humanity,
there's no way that you can behave in such a way.
I think that has to come down to degrees of mental illness.
That's a whole
that's a whole other topic of conversation, which I had a beautiful actor, Nicholas Pinnock, on the show the other week, who was so...
What has he been in? That sounds really familiar.
He is currently filming season 2 of Counterpart.
Okay.
His character is Ian. So they've been filming here, and that just distributes on Stars and other platforms. And then he's been on Marcella.
Okay.
So season 2 just came out on Netflix the other week.
Okay.
So I've watched all of Marcella because it's really good. If you like the killing, if you like the crime thriller type show, Marcella's sort of very,
my mother would love. My mom is like such a Netflix, like she watches and she loves actually the Australian and the British.
Does she really? The Australian shows?
Yes, she likes the Australian shows too.
God, that's some of the reasons why I left the country. No, I'm kidding. No, that's really, I think a lot of internationals, especially the Brits, they do love the Aussie shows. Yeah. There's only 2 of them, and that's why there's not much of an industry there. That's why we all come here.
Right.
There's such an incredible industry here. So I hear you on the religion or spirituality connection. The power of prayer is really important, and I think it's the law of attraction, right? What you want and what you believe in, and what you want to manifest for your reality, your existence. Yes. You know, you put it out there and put it to God. Put the work to the higher intelligence of the universe, and it usually comes back. Right, because they're there to help push you forward and see you succeed. On that note, like, what have been some of the bigger, you mentioned 9/11, but what have been some of the biggest challenges and adversities you've faced in your career that you have actually struggled to overcome, and how did you end up overcoming them?
Wow, that's tough. For my career, I think the hardest thing is just balance for me, honestly, just because I, for the longest time, have worked like 6 days a week. Yeah. And then even with this, like when I've been in LA, I've been trying to work on East Coast time, and I've been trying to fit in events with my work schedule. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to realize, like, you can't do anything. I mean, you can't do everything. Like, you can do anything, word to Beyonce, but you can't.
But we're not,
you can't always,
sadly, not all Beyonce.
No, well, I'm saying she has she has the song. But
yes.
But yeah, just realizing, hey, I'm human. I can only get this much done. If people have expectations, hey, I'm sorry.
It's annoying though. Like, some days you set out and you want to get so much done. You're like, shit, I haven't even worked through like 60% of my goddamn to-do
but you
list
gotta
today.
Like, you know, tomorrow's a new day. You definitely don't be a procrastinator, but you know, you can only do what you can do, and you can't beat yourself up, because that makes you, that's not healthy. It's not good for you emotionally.
Sure.
So you have to learn that really emotional health is just as important as physical health. And
it is.
And I think
no
for
doubt.
me, I'm like, I've always been like, there's been so many times where I was asked, like, what is important? Work-life balance has become incredibly important to me. And taking vacations.
Yes.
Bubble baths.
Yes, babe. Love a good
candles.
Bath. Yes.
All of those things. If you need
meditation.
If you need a drink at the end of the day, yes, meditation is a great way to start the day. I would say exercise too. So those type of things. Career-wise, I think I've had a couple tough transitions. So when I went from freelancing, all the places that you named, XXL, The Source, and all of those, there was a time when, and where you can really see it now, where those the print publications kind of fell to the wayside for the digital. And the budgets. When I began my career, some of the places that I wrote, I was writing $1 a word. So literally, my check was just, I was working somewhere and I was doing $1 a word for a 600 word column. It was cut to 50 cents a word. Yeah. And then a month later,
bills weren't. So.
And then And then a month later, they cut it again to $0.25 a word.
Holy cow pants. That's
crazy. And then one of the other, when I was working for SOHH, it wasn't really a full-time job, but I was getting a monthly certain amount of money. And they had an issue. They were hacked. It was really ugly.
My God.
And they lost a lot of money, and they started having to let people go. So I was let go in, I want to say, like May of 2009, and did not have another steady check like that until I got the job at Bossip in December of
How
that
did you
year.
survive? How did you survive? There are so many struggling artists and creatives in this town and everywhere in the world. How do you survive through those hard times?
It's really big that you talk to everybody that you know. So you kind of can, hey, if you hear of anything, let me know. Because what happened for me was within that, literally the day after I was let go, I had a video director who I had profiled previously for XXL call me, and he said, hey, I'm working on a documentary project and I need a writer and I want you to come do it. And I literally was offered a job that paid more than the money that I had been making, but it was a short-term job. So I went from short-term job to short-term job. And then the production studio that worked with that documentary, the owner really liked me. So he would call me in to do little things. So I was just coming into the city to do things with the studio. And I also I had to kind of stay focused. So even though I didn't have this platform, I had my own blog, which was called, can I cuss? No?
Of course. I cuss all the time.
Oh, okay. So it was called I Fucks With It, but it was with the X. Yeah. ifuckswithit.com. And because I knew all these different publicists and stuff, so I still was able to come cover things, and I would have my own original content that I put on my site. So you know how sometimes people might get down because they don't have a job and they'll like just sleep through the day. I was big on like, I'm not laying in bed all day. I would get up and I would get on the computer and I would write things for my own blog, and I was still getting all the emails about new music. So I would post the music, or I would post the music videos. Yeah. And I was forming relationships. So I had met this woman, Molly Hunter, who worked for Tree Sound Studios in Atlanta. And I would come to the studio sometimes, and you know, she told me, hey, if you are able to book studio time, you know, we can pay you for that. So I was finding producers and artists to bring to the studio who would book studio time. And Molly also, she always was good for, hey, let me take you to eat, or let me cook you something. She's like known for cooking in her studio all the time. So that she really helped a lot. And she was very encouraging. Yeah. And then, like I said, it's all about network. So just as I got into the industry, because I had an editor friend who I had gone to college with. I also ended up having a friend who knew the CEO. Well, at the time she was the CEO of Bossip, Mar Frazier. She still works with the company, and now she's over all the Interactive One digital platforms. So we clicked right away, and that's how I ended up at Bossip. So that was definitely a tough spot though, because it was like I was calling my mom constantly, hey, I got to make a car payment. You think you can help this month? And I had an aunt and uncle who were very supportive in Birmingham, Alabama, where my family's all from. So they helped as well. So,
but not everybody is able to get that help, right? So it's like proactivity,
definitely. But
maintaining a routine as though you are working 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever the hell
that was key for sure.
Yeah.
But also, just like I said, you have to really use your resources.
Yes, you do.
And I think it's funny because I feel like a lot of the newer generation, it's a mixture. There's people who are willing to work really hard and do it on their own, and there's a lot of people who...
There's a hell of a lot that are not. That are
there's people who are entitled and who think because we live in this Instagram age, they think everything is instant success, and like that they could just do this, or like this person's going to give them favors. And I think that we do find also in our business, there's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of that going on as well. So like that's like another thing where sometimes you're battling against people who kind of have an advantage going in. But those were some big things for me. It was just like literally the money part was really tough. And I think sometimes you also just have to learn to say no. I think you have to say no sometimes. Every opportunity is not a good opportunity, and I think also just knowing your worth. I think we talked about during the panel as well, where it's like you have to really say, hey, this job that I'm doing is worth a lot more than what you're paying me for it. And it can be a difficult thing to ask for more money, but I have done that before as well.
Absolutely. I think it doesn't matter where you are, what phase you are in your career, you do have to sometimes go over and above. Definitely know your worth. I mean, that comes down to the self-worth, self-esteem,
and document
situation.
It too. Like, make sure you're celebrating all your successes and you're writing them down.
Absolutely.
And so that when people say like, well, what are you really bringing to the table? You can say, I'm bringing the table to the table,
Literally, she brings a table. She bought a table. No, I agree. So I think there are a lot of women out there that look up to you and aspire to a career similar to, and journey similar to the one that you have endured. What advice, insights have you got to share with those younger women looking to be and do you?
Would say do the work. I think like that's really big because I think a lot of people, I think in this age, it's really like a just do it time where like you don't have to have, you can make a video with your phone, but you can still, you still can make a good video with your phone. I'm not just saying make any old video with your phone if you're doing an interview or something. Make sure that it's high quality and that it doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be like something you shot with, a Sony or whatever, but like just make sure it looks good and it's clean and the audio is clear. But do the work, you don't have to. Yeah, that would be the main thing for me. And I also would just say like treat people well because it's a small world and you often encounter the same people more than once. So you want them to have a good memory of you, you know, and I think that's something that Maya Angelou said, which is like people will forget, you know, the things that you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So I think
I can relate
when
to
you
that.
make people feel
a
good,
certain way.
That's key. You know, personal relationships are the key to life, I have said many a time.
Absolutely.
My dad has always taught me, don't sweat the small stuff. And he says everything is small stuff. So
my father said exactly the same thing. It's true.
Wow, good dad advice.
It's true. I think it's very easy for all of us to get caught up in the small stuff, whether it's like in the day-to-day or the stuff that's going on in our heads.
Right.
But you have to take yourself out of the small stuff, right? And try and constantly focus on the bigger picture.
Definitely focus on the bigger picture.
You know,
in the moment, live in the moment.
Exactly.
My dad also is a big Rudyard Kipling fan, the poet, and there's the poem "If," and I would recommend that everyone read that because.
Can you recite it for us
no,
today?
Don't do that to me,
if you
Georgie.
could?
I know. If I could, then I need to be an English teacher. Okay.
You almost are. You practically are. Next time.
I need like a teleprompter. I can recite it.
That's right, Miosha. That's on you. No, so where can people find you? Where can they stay in touch? There's obviously the Bossip site.
Yeah. So my Instagram is my full name, Janeé Bolden, JaneeBold, and my Twitter is Janeé TMB, that's my initials. So,
Got it.
And I'm on Facebook, but that's not really a good place to find.
Is that more of a private page?
No, it's more like keeping in touch with like school friends and family because you know how like your family, your aunts and stuff are like, they're not getting on Instagram. You know, you gotta still talk to them on Facebook.
We hope they're probably not, but yeah.
The best thing I would say is Twitter and Twitter or Instagram if you shoot me a DM.
Awesome. And is there anything that we have coming up to look forward to that we should stay tuned for or look out for?
Stay tuned for, I'm working on a documentary. I can't really say that much right now.
Awesome, babe. Great.
Has a lot to do with me growing up in Iowa.
Okay.
So stay tuned for that.
Far out. I like it's like coming to an hour and I still have so much to talk to you about.
Sorry.
We did not even delve into that part of your
upbringing. We totally
background.
meant to talk about that too.
Oh,
maybe I have to come back. Can I come back?
Of course you're going to come back, especially around the documentary, right? When it's
ready,
and anytime beforehand, like come and co-host or something, you know,
I'd love
any of that kind of stuff. So
I would love to.
It's been an absolute joy and pleasure. I'm looking at your gorgeous nail color. It's stunning.
Thank you.
It's my favorite.
Like coral.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. What's on for the rest of the day, by the way? Before you take off,
I have a dinner to go to, and then I think that's probably going to be it. Yeah, I might go to a skate party,
and then you're out.
I leave tomorrow night, so I have a little bit more time. Tomorrow I'll be around.
Well, we're very, very grateful for making time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at her, she's so cute. Thank you again, babe. You're watching Outlier TV. I'm Georgie Speakman. This is
Janeé Bolden.
Thanks for having us.